What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another FPL video. My name is Mo, and today in this video I'll be reviewing all the £8 million midfielders that are listed in the FPL game this season. So they're players from all different teams, so I'll be reviewing the background data from past seasons, what my expectations are in this season, and do I believe that they're essential in your current teams or not. Before we get into all that, if you guys haven't liked the video, give us a like, and if you haven't subscribed to FPL INKLING, hit that subscribe button and join the FPL INKLING family. So let's start off and let's begin with our first player in the £8 million bracket in itself. So the first player we're going to discuss is Bukayo Saka for Arsenal. Now, before I get into his information and his background stats and my opinions on whether he should be in your teams or not, one thing I do want to discuss in terms of when you guys create your drafts, what my personal opinion is an £8 million midfielder essential? I believe it is. At least one in your squad. So whether you're creating a draft which is a 5-3-2, which is the same as mine, a 5-4-1, 3-4-3, 4-4-2, whichever formation you wish to play, I think what you need to remember is what 8 million does for you in terms of a midfielder budget is it gives you some flexibility that, for example, because there's 7 midfielders that are listed at this price bracket, and they're actually one of the main sources of kind of like play and source of goals and output for the FPL game in itself. It's very vital we identify which player has a good fixture run, who's looking in good form, and who we believe that can we get there before they hit that like kind of peak period of scoring consistent points. So I believe at least one is essential. 2 is great if you can get 2 in. I wouldn't say they are essential to have 2 because I believe that prices this year for the game have been completely fair. So you can actually even go downgraded to like 7 million, where there's like Grealish, Bernardo Silva, for example, Harvey Barnes. You got Rashford at 6.5, Martinelli at 6 mil, Neto, Fornells at 5.5. So the essential aspect for me, 1, I believe you do need it to add some kind of like depth to your squad. If you get 2, even more better, to give more strength to your squad itself. But I believe that at least 1 is essential. And what I want to do is when I go through these players, I want to like kind of list them and state that whether I believe that they're essential to having game week 1 or not. The ones I do say are essential, I wish I could get all of them in, but one reason or another, I won't be able to get every single one of them in as I please due to budget constraints. So let's crack on about the 8 million players now. So first is Saka. By the way, this is no order that I have chosen. It literally is, as I made this video, I have made a draft in terms of the players in itself. So there's no ranking in terms of this is number 1, 2, 3. This is literally the way I'm just going to discuss which players we're going to talk about in the £8 million bracket. So Bukayo Saka, at the moment, he's owned, at the time of recording this video, 20.8% of managers. Now, his ownership has gone up. 2 reasons. In pre-season, he's an absolutely phenomenal. He also potentially is the penalty taker. He took a penalty in pre-season in the final game, but he did win that penalty. But last season, Gabriel Martinelli also took penalties as well. So we're still yet to know who the kind of confirmed penalty taker is. But last year, 179 points, 20 returns, so 9 assists and 11 goals, played 2,978 minutes. And if you look at his fixtures coming into the first 5 game weeks, Crystal Palace away to begin the season. It's not going to be an easy game for Arsenal going back against their old captain, which is Patrick Vieira. Then they've got Leicester at home, Bournemouth away, Fulham at home, and Aston Villa at home. So I think it's a generally quite a decent fixture, a kind of generous fixture run. And I expect output from him. Now, a lot of people are kind of like doubling up on Martinelli, Jesus, or Bukayo Saka and Jesus. It'd be very interesting to see which players go without Jesus, because I know he's owned by over 70% of managers when I checked before this video I was making. So I think that would be around 75% by the game kind of like deadline, which is a few days a week away from us now. So for me personally, I think Bukayo Saka is a good shout. He adds a bit of flexibility to the squad. He's a no-nonsense player. He's pretty much nailed on to get first game start for Arsenal. It's very rare that he doesn't feature, and he's usually quite good in terms of injury proneness as well. So I think I have high expectations from him, generally as a player, and the fixtures definitely do back that up as well. And I think if Jesus is going to get good output, you know, Saka's going to be there or thereabouts because he takes corners and set pieces as well. So that adds to his I'd say lists of positives. But for me, I think he's essential, and if I could get him into my squad, I definitely would. The kind of argument comes in between is Robertson and Diaz versus Saka or Reece James, so that's where I'm getting into a bit of a dilemma at the moment. But overall, Saka, definitely essential. If you can get him in for 8 mil and you have the spot for an Arsenal player, please do consider bringing him into your squad. Now, moving on to Mason Mount. Now, has he been overlooked so far pre-season? In terms of pre-season, he's actually done really well. I guess that's probably with Havertz there as well, and he's having that kind of golden period pre-season. But I think he's had a really good start to the pre-season itself, and Mason Mount is one of those players, he's that kind of like Mr. Consistent. So last season, 169 points, so not as high as Saka, but then again, he played 2,358 minutes, so he's played around 500 minutes less. So his output isn't that bad. He may be a risk of rotation in Chelsea, but I think with the lineup that they have this season, I think he's probably one of the most nailed-on midfielders that does start. So if you look at someone like a Kovacic, who plays for them, you've got Kante potentially centre defensive midfield, Ziyech. So there's a lot of rotation there which is present, and now Sterling's coming as well. But I think Mount, his output might even go up because of Raheem Sterling. We'll just have to wait and see. But again, minutes might be a concern at some point in this season, but generally he's fairly consistent. Nearly 10% of managers own him as if we are making this video. 169 points last season, 11 goals and 11 assists, so that's 22 returns he got. And if you look at the number of games that he potentially could have played, it's nearly a return a game. Looking at his stats, so I think he's quite a good player in a really good Chelsea side. Yes, defensively there have been question marks on Chilwell, Reece James, how they're going to do. Even Mendy in goal. People, when the original drafts came out, people dived in on Mendy being in goal, but his kind of ownership has fell as they've had their games in pre-season. For example, the 4-0 loss against Arsenal. But we have to wait and see how they get off to a good start or an average start in the start of the season. And the fixtures are not too bad. Everton away. Everton have been, shocking, I'd say pretty much since last season. Even in pre-season, they've lost to teams that I've never heard of. And then they've got Spurs, which is a tough game at home, obviously with Harry Kane, Son, Kulusevski, Richarlison will be back for that one, and then they've got Perisic in their defence as well. So they've got quite a few good players in Tottenham. That's going to be an interesting game. And then Leeds away, Leicester at home, and Southampton away. They're not bad fixtures, so maybe getting in onto Mount might not be a bad idea. So only 10% ownership at the moment, which I think will increase if he does indeed get off to a really good start. Quite underrated in my opinion. 22 returns last season is not too bad. He got 13 returns the season before, but he played around 500 minutes more as well that season. So let's just wait and see. Keep a close eye out. I am looking at Mount myself as well, but it's just a toss-up between Saka, Diaz and Mount at the moment for me. But that is Mason Mount for you in a nutshell, guys. Is he essential? I wouldn't say he's definitely an essential for me at the moment. I would say that for me at the moment, I'd rate Saka above him. But if you do want to go differential, or you've already kind of exceeded your number of players on other teams such as Arsenal, Liverpool, even Spurs, for example, then maybe going for Mason Mount will be an ideal candidate in that £8 million role. But overall at the moment, I don't think it's essential. We'll have to wait and see. I think maybe game week 3 could keep an eye out for him. And I think if I do wildcard and he's in good form, it might be a really good chance, or a very good chance, I bring him into my game week squad itself. Now, moving on now to James Maddison. So what a season he had last season. Honestly, I think he was very under the radar. And I think if he can continue that good form this season, it was a very poor Leicester side, by the way, as well last season. But he generally did stand out with 23 returns, 12 goals and 11 assists, 181 points. He did play only 2,454 minutes. He did have an injury during the season, but 181 points is not a bad return, to be fair. And he does tend to get a lot of bonus points because he kind of does most of the kind of like, scoring of points or goals and assists anyway in Leicester team in itself. But he's also on assists because of like corners he takes, free kicks and set pieces that he has as well. Overall, he's a really, really solid player. He's had, his best season by far. His previous best was 137 in 2018-2019. But generally, I think he's Mr. Consistent. He'll get you over 10 to 12 returns definitely in a season, before last season, but he's hit 23 last season. Can he continue it on? I don't see a reason why not. There's a lot of firepower in that team, and there's no Europe this season. So we can look at Vardy, for example, in there. Harvey Barnes, Daka, Iheanacho. There's plenty of firepower in there. Even Tielemans. James Maddison, is a really, really good alternative as well. And he could be a key differential if someone wants to take a brave punt on him. Now, where the question usually lies around James Maddison, usually is pre-season, is where he's going to be going in terms of transfers. So Newcastle have put a bid in for £50 million. That's kind of one of the major things that's putting me off, is will he still be at Leicester come start the season, or even a couple of game weeks before the transfer deadline ends. But generally, just even looking at Leicester's fixtures, they're not too much to write home about, to be brutally fair. So maybe I might wait till the first wild card to see how he kind of starts off, because Brentford at home is not a bad fixture. Arsenal away is going to be a really difficult fixture, despite Leicester doing so well against Arsenal in the Premier League itself. Southampton at home, quite a nice fixture to be fair. And then Chelsea away and Manchester United at home. So again, it's not a great start. 3 out of those first 5 are extremely difficult fixtures. So personally, for me, I don't think it's an essential to start off with game week 1. But if you are just targeting him for just one game week, Brentford at home could not be a bad shout. But if you are looking to potentially look at players such as like Kane to Haaland, or any other kind of moves you're looking to make in the first game week, like Son to De Bruyne, for example, as well for game week 2, I think maybe if you're going to be having to make a Maddison to, let's say, a Bukayo Saka, for example, or a Mason Mount, I personally would not waste a -4 on that for that particular game against Arsenal. Again, if you've got bench depth, then you could potentially put him on the bench. But if you're investing £8 million into a player like Maddison, you definitely do want to play him. Do I think Arsenal can concede, or Chelsea and Manchester United? For sure. No one's defences are invincible, but I just think that there are better players out there. So for me personally, I don't think Maddison to begin the season is an essential, but as the season progresses, whether he's at Leicester or Newcastle, dependent on fixtures plus his form, we know he can deliver. We know he hits a hot patch or a good patch. We just got to find the right moment and make sure we have enough funds to get him in at that time. So that's why I think, having that £500,000 in your budget is kind of crucial. But for me, if I get £100 million, I'm telling you now, I'm pretty much going to be spending every single penny of that to make sure I can have a strong squad to begin with. But then when I play my wild card, maybe around game week 6 or onwards, I may consider, keeping a £500,000 spare just in case I need to catch on players before price rises or due to price rises in itself. Now let's move on to our next player, which is Diaz for Liverpool. This is an interesting one, to be fair. It's quite an interesting one. We're judging a lot by just one game, which was the Community Shield. For me, what I want to say, he's owned by 24.3% of managers, so he's the highest owned £8 million midfielder at present. Now, last season, he only played 957 minutes because he came in January. 64 points, 7 returns with 4 goals and 3 assists. And he got 6 bonus points as well. Now, effectively, the way I see Diaz at the moment, he's going to be the replacement of Mane, but 4 million cheaper. Now, Mane wasn't on penalties, and if you can even get, Mane was constantly getting over 200 points. Now, I'd say, even if he doesn't hit that 200-point mark, if he can get anything around 160 points onwards for 8 million in a Liverpool squad, I think he can definitely even achieve around maybe 180 possible, maybe 190, because I think he will get games and he will get the firepower and the service as well from Salah, Trent, Robertson. The dilemma is the Robertson versus Diaz, but for me at the moment, to get a better balance of the squad, I have gone Diaz at the moment, and it kind of makes me... The reason why I have to have Diaz is because I can't get Saka in, because I've already got 3 Arsenal players, and then I have to sacrifice Reece James or Cancelo to get Robertson in, and I kind of don't like the balance of my squad if I were to do that. But it kind of just doesn't kind of add up in terms of what flexibility I'm looking for from my draft. Do I think he's essential? I think he is. Looking at those fixtures, barring even the Manchester United one, it's highlighted as cherry red as being difficult. I still don't think it's that difficult, to be fair. At Old Trafford, they do tend to play well against Manchester United the last couple of years. Can't remember the last time we actually beat Liverpool in a competitive game, not pre-season. I'm not going to count that as a competitive game, but it's going to be an interesting watch, and I think Diaz adds a bit of flexibility to them. He was playing against a Man City side, so he's not going to get into those positions as he will, let's say, for example, against Fulham or Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, or even Newcastle. Even Manchester United, their defence isn't the best in the world, but I do believe there's a lot to come from him. He will hit a purple patch. He will get goals. I think this is one of those seasons where you have to sit behind the sofa and just pray the others blank. because the way the prices have been done, I think they're really competitive. Whether that's Haaland versus Kane, for example, Kevin De Bruyne versus Son. Salah's in 13 million. He's in another league, so we don't need to compare him to anyone. But even at 8 million budget, so if you're looking at Maddison, Saka, Foden, Mahrez, these kind of players as well, someone's going to lose and someone's going to win in terms of points for a weekly basis. We just need to be patient, I think. We don't need to jump place to place, but if we see a trend, then definitely we should go for it. But for me, right now, Diaz, I'm definitely targeting, and he's definitely an essential for me, because for me, the top two that I'm looking to target is Diaz or Saka in my first game week draft in itself. Fixtures are very favourable as well, and I think there's yet a lot for us to see, and the best is yet to come from Diaz in itself. Now, let's move on to Mahrez. So, is Mahrez a favourite of Pep or not? I just think Pep just loves getting the best out of him by minimising or kind of rotating his minutes in itself. Now, he was the highest goal scorer for them last season in the Premier League itself. So, he comes in at 11 goals, 7 assists. So, overall, 135 points from 1,485 minutes. His returns when he does get the minutes are insane. If he was to be given, I'd say 3,000 plus minutes in a season, he definitely would be getting over 30 returns, maybe even 35. So again, it's his minutes that he manages. The last time he actually played around 2,000, well, nearly 3,000 minutes, he got nearly 200 points with 25 returns for, I think that was Leicester's last season. But again, since he's come to Man City, the most number of minutes he's ever played in 4 seasons is 1,934. And he got 175 points in that season with 25 returns. So again, he doesn't really get that much minute time and game time. Yes, Sterling has left. Yes, we've lost Jesus, but we've got Alvarez in there. Foden's still there as well. So again, they were quite disappointing in the Champion Community Shield as well. So I think generally it's going to be a wait and see. And obviously, when Champions League comes along as well, it's going to be a rotation there as well. But for me, Mahrez, I think he's a really good player. But it's just the only thing that frustrates me is his lack of minutes. And looking at the fixtures as well, obviously barring the fixtures in terms of West Ham away first game, I think that's going to be a tough game, but certainly can win. And then Bournemouth, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest. So I think, if he gets a good run in, a really good chance to go big. But yet again, it's just the moment of understanding, will there be a lot of transfers in terms of on the pitch? And in terms of more transfers coming through the kind of like transfer window, we're yet to see. Someone could be signed for that position. But I think generally the 5 subs will make it interesting as well. And in a squad which already rotates so much, I wouldn't be surprised if Pep just goes at 58 minutes. All right, I'm going to bring on 3 subs now and 2 subs later on just to keep the team fresh. And that could be a tactical move as well. So minutes are key. I don't think it's essential. But if you are backing him, again, it's at Man City. I think you can definitely get more targets in a Man City squad, which are nailed. Edison, Diaz, Cancelo, Haaland to some extent. I want to see how they manage his minutes. But yeah, wait for us to see this again. But Mahrez, I think, isn't essential at the moment. I think there's better value elsewhere with players who definitely will start. And then moving on to Foden, again, I'm not going to talk too much about the minutes and rotation because I think it's pretty much the same. Will I think he get his breakthrough this season? Potentially, yes. The fixtures are quite generous. He got 15 returns last season, 137 points, which is his highest return in terms of points. Played over 2,100 minutes, which was the first time last season. Will he get more minutes this season? I think with the departure of the players, I think he will. But again, it's going to be worthwhile seeing that how many minutes he'll get. And when he gets rotated due to competition kind of rotation and the 5 subs rule as well. Owned by around 6.2% of managers of recording. I think this might be the season where he really breaks out and kind of comes in his own element due to being given that opportunity with no Sterling and Jesus there. Again, we just have to wait and see when he kind of gets the run through. And if he does hit some form, maybe he will be a good consideration, but definitely not an essential for me at the moment. And last but not least, I think the forgotten kid on the block, who did so well last season, the best points scored since he came into the game last season he joined, 99 points in 1,259 minutes with 5 goals and 9 assists for Spurs. Now, the only thing I think kind of like questions him or his place this season is the Richarlison move. Again, will his minutes be compromised? I'm not too sure. Who will sacrifice the minutes for Richarlison? I don't think Son and Kane will be given that kind of rotation, but he's coming at 7%. He's a bit differential in terms of Spurs fixtures. The first fixture is really nice in terms of Southampton, as we've discussed. Chelsea will be a difficult game, but then we've got Wolves, Nottingham Forest, and West Ham and Fulham even in game week 6. So not a bad start. Kulusevski, we know what he does. He kind of gets into the right areas, doesn't mind taking a run in at the defence, opens up areas for other other players to manage their own runs and get in the end of some good crosses from him as well. So for me, I don't think he's an essential to begin with, because I think, if you are looking to kind of double up on Spurs, ideally you'd like to go Son and Kane, but if you don't, then Kulusevski and Kane might not be a bad option. I wouldn't go Kulusevski and Son. I don't think that's a good option. But if you were to choose one of the midfielders, then obviously they can combine him with Harry Kane in itself. So this is my opinion. I don't think he's an essential for game week 1, but again, he's an amazing player. We know what he can do, and we know what he delivers on the pitch in terms of FPL and for Spurs themselves. So those were the players that we're discussing for £8 million bracket for the FPL game for game week 1. Are they essential? I've given you my thoughts on them. For me, Diaz or Saka are the main two, and Mount followed at number 3. But again, it's whoever you feel comfortable with bringing into your squad. And as you guys can see, the most value you can add on to these players is by getting them in the right time before their price rises themselves. But that's it, guys. That's my insight to the £8 million midfielders. Let me know what your thoughts are. Which players are you looking at? Are you even considering an £8 million midfielder? Let me know. Are they essential for you? Would you like some more information about some other players? Give me a shout. But before you go, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you like the content, and in addition, hit that notifications icon if you want to be notified when I release my content. And if you haven't joined the FPL INKLING League, why haven't you done it so far? Pipe in that code into the screen which is below my camera onto the FPL game and join our FPL INKLING League. If you haven't subscribed yet, my question is why not? It's absolutely free. Hit that subscribe button, join the family, and let's have an amazing FPL season, which is only a few days away. I want you guys to take care. Stay tuned, and I'll be back with some more content.